So one of the things that we're doing, Rich, is twice a month, Joachim's coming in and we're working through finance, profitability, some templates that he's got, any new information, because he's out there improving all the knowledge that we have. So I'll send you the first part of it. It was about how to evaluate all your clients, which over the last 5 years, Joachim's been getting like more advanced when it comes to the client evaluation. Are our clients profitable? Do we really want to work with them? So we recorded a quick video last 2 weeks ago, and this is kind of step 2. And we have the templates and stuff. So you might pick up a couple of things and then you might learn stuff as well, or might be able to share and go, well, how about this? And tell us, because this is what we're growing here, is I want to know this, like, how do I know that? And this is a problem that we have in our agency. How do we figure it out? So
the way we also set it up, that the first one was about, you know, try to identify, before you do sort of your ABC analysis on your clients, try to identify on your projects, where do you actually make money, who do you need to protect on in your project database, where do you need to sort of nurture, and who do you need to act on. So sort of define that first. So I showed a super simple template how we have usually worked with that before. So I think one good way to, and that was the first section, which is really to identify that, and one, you know, what sort of a high impact project and a non-high impact project, and rate that. And then you can define your own ratings on, you know, what has the highest weight for you. It could be a good input for if you have sort of a day off with a sort of an on-site thing with your team to go through it, to highlight which projects you really need to focus on.
Yeah. So this is everything that we're going. Yeah, this is what we're covering in 4 parts. We're going identify the high impact projects or clients or retainers, allocate the resource allocation review, like how are you, you know, have you got the right resources supporting them? Then we're going to go through optimize, looking at all the different strategies for that, and then the tracking and the performance. So I'll send you this link inside in school, so you can see the first video, and you'll get the template is down the bottom. So the template's there, you can download it and make your own version. But this is what we're running the first series. We're just going, okay, let's take everyone through this process, and everything's recorded in the platform.
It's just, I think that Rich could probably add as much value as I can, if not more, to be honest. But
that's why we invited him in to be an advisor and an investor in it, because that's what I know. You will build something and we'll add something else to it.
Yeah. So if we do this in 20 minutes, I'll just do a quick recap on the previous one, and then I go into sort of the resource.
Yeah, just give us the overview, that first section before we move in, and then it'll slot in. That's brilliant. Yeah.
All right, good. So I'll do that. Let me just open that one up. All right. So I don't know if when I share, I can't see myself or anyone else. And that's a little bit unfortunate, because it would be great to, I just see my own screen. So I'm not sure what you guys see.
Show me.
I can't see your screen.
It's not shared yet.
Let's see if I share it now. Maybe if I do like this, just take the tab. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Ah, great. That's much better. Otherwise, if it was desktop, I just see.
Yeah, you're here. I can see all 3 of us on the side, and I can see your spreadsheet.
Ah, perfect. Great, great. Okay, so just as a quick recap, I mean, last time we talked about this being sort of the first phase, trying to identify where do we make money, where do we lose money, what could potentially be great clients to work with going forward. And then we had defined sort of high impact project. What does that mean? We also went through, you can say the rating, saying some strategic consideration when you rate this. One thing is to take the profitability, and that's really just to make it, well, first of all, let's start from the left. We split up what do we have in terms of retainer-based clients and project-based clients. And sometimes we have clients have both retainer and projects. It could be that you have sort of a CRM project to integrate and migrate the client, but you also have an ongoing project to build a retainer, or that you have a CMS or a website build together with some marketing work. it's always good to split those because they might have different, you can say, economics when you go through it. And it's a higher likelihood of that you have things like scope creep, etc., when it's more project-based revenue than recurring-based revenue. So then the simple methodology is just to try to identify the revenue that you bill and the actual cost that you generate, both in terms of your own hours that you spend, subcontracting works you use, specific tools you might use, or any other financial item that you need to support the client with. Maybe you have some budget to do paid media, etc., that you utilize. So all of that you incorporate into generating a profitability figure. And these are just dummy figures to highlight the costs, the revenue, the cost, and the gross margin in this model, giving you some sort of indicative profitability. And here we said, remember, this is on a gross margin level, so it's very high up in the P&L, which means that having 20% is not good enough, because all of these, whatever comes out of this has to cover sales, marketing. So we're not loading a full customer acquisition cost in here. And it also has to cover admin and management, etc. So we said that a good rate for scoring this is that you should at least be above, a good rate is that you're above 50%. Primarily, or ideally, it would be above 60% on a gross margin level. But at least 50%. So you can say when you're in yellow here, which means that you should act on it, that's when you are between 35 and 50%. Below 35%, it's really hard to make a good bottom line, sort of a healthy EBITDA level. So if you look on this column here, this is sort of highlighting the profitability rates with some sort of simple formatting in terms if it's below or above, or some act. And the easy way to do this, you can say that normally you talk about them. I think I downloaded that here. The green ones is something you need to protect. You need to identify, okay, these are the clients that we really made to, you know, either we are above the value pricing chain, which means that we're overcharging them. The client might silently be dissatisfied. So you need to be sure that they are happy by having a clear communication with these clients. But it could also be that you work really efficiently with a client. The ones to develop are the ones where you have sort of a medium profitability. Here is, of course, the ones that could become a high impact client. It could be that you're taking on a strategic decision to take on this with maybe a little bit lower margin. You want to grow this into a bigger client. And then wants to act on, that's normally a long tail. And in most businesses, we see 20% of the companies are here, and they pay for the rest of the projects that you have. And it is in one way super simple in the sense that if you can manage project and manage resources, you can manage your business. That's when you make the profit. That's when all of that goes down to the bottom line. So if we go back to this one, then we then took these profitability ratios, did a definition over here, which is then some strategic consideration, some financial fit, looked on high impact projects. That means, is it aligned with the agency overall culture, strategy, and goals? Some resource allocation challenges. Does it match well that kind of resources we have, or do we need to either use one of the founders or one, you know, there's one person only that can do this. So it's immediately that person is also the one who can sell it, etc. So you sort of become a tight resource. And that is very subjective, being disagree, strongly disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree or strongly agree. And then the other one on the strategic consideration is the resource allocation. Same thing. It's sort of subjective feeling. That's why it's good to do this in a team level to decide in these projects. Financial fits, it's the revenue potential. And this is for a smaller agency, you know, what sort of revenue potential. Like if you were a bigger agency, talking about yourself, let's say 3 to 5 million euro and above, you would probably rate this higher and saying that, you know, a good fit client for us, those are the ones that come from 100,000 and above annually, for instance, in terms of annual sales. And also the profitability, the gross margin on the pricing and the close rate, what do we have? And growth scalability is also super important. That's where you sort of define, is this a high impact project for us? And then simply take it on a project by project basis and weigh these things together. You have here high impact resource allocation, the strategic considerations, and financial viability. So in this case, you can say if we take the financial viability, it represents a little bit more than 60% of the weight. And strategic is just slightly below 40%. And then it's just a rating from 1 to 10. And you get the weighted score saying that, you know, which ones are your sort of say high impact clients, coming down to the green ones here that you really need to work on to protect them. And then work through, that's why this is a good thing for a sort of a group exercise in a day off, to really work this through and understand, have we done this correct? Or can we work some clients up? Do they have maybe more growth potential if we change this? Is this also defined when you look on your project teams? Is it defined to the one specific team that always are in red, or specific resources you sit with? So you get a lot of input, you know, you get a lot of output of an exercise like this. That's really, really useful.
How are you doing this currently? Like, what's the process, Rich, that you have?
So we have a kind of a similar setup. We run it from within ClickUp, where we're kind of tracking the same kind of stats, and then those things will be we mostly tracking things like utilization rate and the profitability around those clients. I don't think we have it in such a formulated way where we've got a bucket of protect, act, and whatever the other category was. But we do track that on a weekly basis. Actually, that the CS teams and our strategy director are going through that pretty regularly.
Amazing.
And I think that's what you should do. This exercise, I would say, is more like a semi-annual exercise. You can't do this too often. This is more of a strategic work that you do on a project basis to understand. It really gives you the good gut feeling when running your business about how, you know, how good fit is my team compared to the clients that we have at the moment, and looking forward where we want to be. Do we have the right setup? Because this is sort of the input you have to grow your team into the next stage.
I agree with your point though as well. Like, so we're looking at like the profitability. We're also looking at the team structure as well. So like, are we seeing patterns come from particular teams? And we're also looking at it from a servicing level as well. So over the past, we've used these, like a very similar process to assign, to figure out whether or not our team structure is working right, whether or not we've got capacity blockers going on within the projects, but also then going, actually, is this a service we want to be delivering on an ongoing basis? Which is why it's basically this process that led us to moving away from design and development.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. But as I said, you guys are probably operating like this, but I do think that 8% or the agency or even more are sort of need to grow into this. So this can really fast track smaller businesses to start doing this earlier on. And it's a learning process. Once you get used to it and you get the feel for it, it's really about building knowledge about your own clients and your own team.
Yeah. And this is what we were talking about the last time as well. If you bring in some of the client services team and you're having an honest conversation about, okay, they're profitable and the work is good, but they're an absolute nightmare to deal with. They're very rude to us. You can also help bolster up the fact that your team can understand that you are thinking about them. It's not bringing in these big clients and that are just great, but they're rude to them, are not responsive, or are not fun to work with. You know, you can actually help the team culture by having a group conversation on this level with them as well.
Yeah, that's spot on.
And things you won't find out, that you go, do you know how hard it is for me to get them to that profitability level? I have to do this and this and this, and I have to ask them 10 times for something. And then you all uncover, oh, they're an absolute nightmare.
And the other relevant thing, I think, is this table here. If you look on the number of ongoing projects, like say you're around 60 here, only 10% are sort of in the high impact range, where you have said that these are the type of clients we want to grow into. So that it's a pretty small number that you really need to protect in this case, or also to look on the other ones. Can we grow any of these into a bigger type of business? And if you look on agencies that want to become part of a bigger group, for instance, and saying that we're selling this to someone else, this is something they would always look on to see what's the risk scenario stepping in. If you lose 2 or 3 clients, what does that mean for a business?
Right.
How sustainable is the business?
It's actually quite, particularly if you're looking at HubSpot agencies as well, looking at something like this will help you align to whether or not you're primarily working with SMB, mid-market or corp, which can help with kind of the strategy around sales and delivery.
Yeah, so much. I completely agree. Okay, so that was sort of a recap what we went through last time. It was really sort of a quick run.
Yeah.
And what we said was the idea for this time was really to say, okay, moving from clarifying this picture, and actually there's so many ways to work with this. You mentioned that you have ClickUp for input for these sort of data. I personally think that if you do this semi-annually, you do it sort of a day off. Maybe first you do it in a sort of an extended management team. Then you might invite, the team leaders or the project leaders, or even have it on a day off. First, you do your own analysis and then have them to come with certain input. So people are aware that these are high impact projects. These are the ones we need to care for. And then you work through all the different ideas. How can you do that in a smarter way? How do you, if this is sort of a client that we need to protect, what can we do to protect it? So you take the strategic discussion down to tactics and list on a project to project basis. What are the tactics we should work on for the next 6 months on these different projects? To create a little bit of consistency in your overall work. It also aligns your teams much better. But it also moves you into, you can say, the second part, which we said is the resource allocation. So let's say that you've gone through this exercise. Let's say you have this sort of understanding or a gut feeling now that we have identified the tactics from maybe 40, 50 of our projects, and some of them we might even decide to close out. Then the whole resource allocation is really the critical aspect here to sort of secure the success of the projects. And I think you need to look on both the financial part, but also the gaps that you have in your own staffing, both today and how you're moving it. And try to assess, that these resources that you have, how have I distributed them proportionally across the projects, or have I allocated sort of the top resource to the top projects or the high impact projects, or are the high impact projects because I have the best resources there? Does that mean I have to act on the other resources that I have in the business? And then on addition, add the cost assessment to this. So on a costing level, how do I staff my project in terms of juniors, seniors, specialists, account managers, project managers? And it's a pretty complex exercise, but a really, really useful exercise if you get it done properly. And here, of course, you should also work with opportunities like freelancers and third-party suppliers in areas where you see that it could actually help you out, or it could be a specialist area that you don't have yet, but it adds a big value to the overall project that you have. Or like you guys do, Rich, you work with other agencies as well to support you in certain areas, and you decide to move away from some type of work in your business and work with complementing agencies, if you want to put it like that.
So you have that in that template, if you want to share.
Yeah, it's in the same template. So I need to share that again here. Yeah,
that's okay. So that's at the first part. Like I said, this is a template that everyone's going to get. They download, and then you can adapt, or it probably for you, Rich, you'd cross-reference and go, oh, we're not looking at that in ClickUp, let's add that in, or let's make sure that can be added in a different way.
I'll just share the same document again to show you.
Yeah, and then the first part, yes, perfect.
This is like a super simple way to do it, and in ClickUp, I'm sure you have set certain, on a team level, you might have a department level, you might define it slightly different. And of course, you can ClickUp or Excel or whatever system you utilize, Asana or etc. You will get some data out of that. Some data you might get from several systems. You need to put it together into one system to get the proper view of it. But it's really to look on the billable figures, and you need always when you talk about billability, you need to sort of break it down to the most granular level you can in order to make the right decision. I think what is super relevant here is, this is again just an example, I just dummy data things in, but if you look on billability, you should not look of course only on one period. You probably need a little bit of an extended period to try to understand, is this a longer term challenge for us as a business in terms of having not enough resources or having an overcapacity? If it's sort of in a longer term, like in this example I've done, let's say in this case it's an SEO, constantly has low billability. So of course that requires some action, and then you can also put the number, how many physical people do we have here on our total staff? So how much does that represent, in order to see what sort of number of billable. And also you might have team leads or non-billable people managing a bigger group. So that should also be highlighted to say, what is a good sort of billable, non-billable ratio to work with. And just to make it super clear that under the definition, the way we have used it here is that you have total number of hours in a month, for instance, around 170 hours available every month. Then you have the utilization rate, what's available for work, because it could be sick leaves, it could be vacations, etc. So whatever is available for work, and how much of that time is actually work towards clients, that's also billed to clients. That's sort of how we define the billable rate in this case. And I do think most of the agencies, at least at your size, Richard, you do have this, I'm sure, in some level or some format. It might look a little bit different everywhere. And it's also super important to have sort of a gatekeeper across the business that has this overview constantly to help management to really highlight that this is becoming sort of a medium to long-term challenge to fill this capacity. We can see that it's not leads coming in, it's not really fulfilling this capacity. We need to take action. Or
we've actually just brought in a few months ago a resource manager who now owns all of this. So like the allocation, and also making sure that we've got enough resource mapped to the pipeline as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
And a resource manager like that, it's a super central role. It should be someone who has the, you can say, mandate to be pretty strong. Because project leaders would always be a little bit overprotected of their clients, and salespeople will always be underprotected. They say they can do this, they can do that. So this resource manager has a fine balance between, you can say, project management and salespeople, because they want to sell everything, and you can always deliver everything at any cost, pretty much. The other part with these resource managers that's normally really good is that, let's say, you have a Monday meeting where they can see this on a weekly basis and say, how many hours have we filled this week? And then they can see we're actually, this client couldn't make these 2 workshops plan, cannot happen. Let's see if we can take the workshop plan for next week and move this forward to this week. So you can sort of fill the week. Let's say on Thursday that week, you sort of do the follow-up as a resource manager and say, okay, we actually managed to fill this quite well. How does next week look? What can we do? And then you can reach out to the project managers or the account managers saying, let's see if you can talk to this client to do some additional work next week. Because a lost hour in a service business, you can never recover. That's really, it's the bottom line. You can never recover a lost hour. You cannot ask people to work 50 hours extra the last weekend just to cover up lost hours that you haven't billed for the month.
Yeah. It's not a spare part sitting in a corner of a warehouse. You know, it's like, it's gone. The time's gone.
So, I mean, the work around this resource allocation is super, super important. And very often, I think it falls down on either a team lead who's very sort of married into the projects, or on the sort of management of the company that has 10,000 other things to consider. So I think what you did, Richard, is spot on.
Brilliant.
Yeah. What I've seen on other agencies, they do that, some sort of resource manager or gatekeeper or whatever it's called.
Trust you to use a name like gatekeeper. Okay. Resource manager.
Is it working out well? Have you started to sort of, has that person started full blasted?
Yeah, I think part of it was about releasing releasing a bottleneck with our head of delivery as well. So taking that allocation away from her, so kind of releasing her to focus on the other parts of her job. But now the resource manager is aligning this, is making sure, I think she's still getting to grips with some of the nuances, because resource management isn't always just based around the spreadsheet. There's some who works best with who type stuff that she's still getting grips with. But yeah, good hire.
Nice.
Also, this has a super important other thing is that you will find certain categories here, maybe over time, if you look forward, will always have low billability opportunity. And that is also when you can sort of address this to people that you think this is actually a great person. We want to have that person on our team, just that the skill set is not right for us right now. So that's a person that you can discuss to retrain, to build different competence. And that's also how you can utilize this, because I mean, you have I rather have great people, honestly, in my business with a great mindset, if they're willing to retrain, than someone who's super good but are a little bit toxic for the organization.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So it should not be looked upon as, fire hire type of exercise. It's really right sizing and right skilling. So that comes down, I think, to this one, which is a super typical draft that too much data in one slide. But, but again, just break it down quickly. If you look on the sales, it's really a simple combination of price times volumes. It's price per hours times number of hours, or price per retainer times the retainers, whatever it is. And the pricing is based on, the capacity, the type of junior, senior, client or consulting, and how well you know the client. Can you do a price premium, for instance, if you have a very strong position within a vertical or within a specific field? And the volume is really just a combination of the total market times the market share. And the market share is then based on, how well do you know the customer needs, what you're offering, what are competitors doing, and the quality you deliver. Customer satisfaction is key number 1, 2, 3. I mean, if you're going to grow, you always need to have quality in your business. That's because the repeat business is the easiest one to get. You spend 10% of the time instead of getting new business. So that's the one thing. What we talked about, this resource utilization one, it's probably 2/3 of your OPEX, or maybe even more. It's the staffing, to always make sure that you work with sort of the smart tools, standardization, as we said, knowledge, and utilization rates. So as a simple formula, you can use income as employee, which is then sales minus costs divided by number of employees. And it's, of course, in theory, you should say that sales go up, costs go down, employees go down. That's when you have the highest number here. But it's not, of course, that simple. Employees could actually, might want to increase employees because you can increase sales even more. So that's why you work with the right person or right place, utilization, motivation, chargeability, etc. And that's what I mean when I say that if you can just find the right people, it doesn't matter if they have the right skill set from day one, but if it's the right people, it's much more valuable, because business is moving every 6 months. You need to change, you need to reorganize, you need to rethink. So much better to have people that are willing to go that journey. So I don't know, Richard, if you agree. It sounds a little bit buzzwordy, but it's really, I believe, is a key to get the right people on board.
I think revenue per head is the one stat that we track consistently in the business. So we typically try and target anywhere between 85k pounds and 120k pounds. That's kind of our sweet spot. Below 85, there's not enough going on. Above 120, there's too much and everything's breaking.
Yeah,
right.
And that's like consulting businesses always have this sort of minimum thumb rule, saying around $100,000 per year per consultant is sort of a average figure. It's not when you're in the top tier, but it's you should not go below that. Yeah. So that's a good rule of thumb to keep.
And then what we've learned, I guess, over the last few years as well, is there's so many agencies that haven't even thought about this level or educated themselves. So putting this in as a process to go, have you got this spreadsheet filled out? Or, oh, gee, I didn't even know that. So when you are having conversations with them, they're much more educated about, because we discover that, Kim, it's like, we would go into an agency and they had never even contemplated the fact that they should be protecting some accounts. They were like, oh no, sure, I know Jack, he's great, he's going to work with me forever. It's like, well, okay, we need to get kind of under the hood a little bit, and this is going to help. All this education is going to help bring people up a level to go, oh well, actually let me fill that out first and let me come back to you then.
This is also a good way to grow your team, but also grow your own management team to sort of starting thinking more strategically, because it does raise a lot of questions. And of course, all that strategic thinking needs to end down in some tactical movements. Like for each project, you need to create some tactics around it. But the discussion points you raise when you sort of define high impact project, it opens up a lot more thinking around what are we, what do we want to become, where are we moving, what does the market look in this area, etc.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, I know you need to go, Joachim, so we will let you go. Rich, I can hang on for a few minutes and then we'll catch up on a few other things. Any kind of insights or questions or thoughts on, this is why you're in, to, okay, what do we do next, or can we talk more about this topic? Like, any thoughts on today's?
From me or from Joachim?
You.
No, I think it's good. I think it's stuff that we do, but it's always interesting to see how other people are positioning it, and also it's kind of like a sense check to kind of realize that we're not fucking it up.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are fantastic. I'm super impressed by you.
Thank you, Joachim.
Always the goal.
just trying to grow big enough so we can buy out here.
Yeah, so just get out of here before you start sweet talking them.
Yeah, okay. Super. Thanks, guys.
I'll talk to you later. You know what he's like, he can't help himself.